There are widespread reports that Chris Eubank Jr.'s next fight will be February 28th at the O2 Arena on the undercard for Tyson Fury versus Christian Hamer. Now the reports are that he will be facing unbeaten interim WBA world middleweight title holder Dmitry Chudinov. It's a fight to me that seems slightly bizarre. I cannot understand the risk reward for this fight. I know there's some sort of paper belt, the WBA interim middleweight title, but realistically, nobody views Dmitry Chudinov as a world champion in the middleweight division whatsoever. And winning that belt for Chris Eubank Jr., it's hard to call that a major scalp, considering he's just fought unsuccessfully for the British, the Commonwealth, and the European. Now, the reason I don't understand why they've made this fight, let me tell you something interesting. Billy Joe Saunders, who just beat Chris Eubank Jr. on BoxRec, is rated 20th middleweight on the planet. Dmitry Chudinov, he may not be the best known, but he's actually 5 places higher. He's the 15th rated middleweight. Now, I don't think the guy is anything special. I've watched him fight several times. I know he's fought in the UK twice. I remember first and foremost watching him fight, I believe it was Patrick Mendy in a fight which went to a draw. I also saw him fight Max Maxwell on TV in another one-sided fight. The Mendy fight gave me concerns because I thought this guy's unbeaten guy, should be getting rid of an opponent like Patrick Mendy, but it became a very scrappy, affair. So I don't think he's a world beater, and I think his BoxRec rating flatters him somewhat. I certainly wouldn't consider him a top 15 middleweight myself, and I certainly would say he's a worse fighter than Billy Joe Saunders. But nonetheless, he brings a few things to the table. He's unbeaten, so he's still got that desire. He's experienced at travelling. He's fought multiple times in the US, multiple times in the UK, so it's not going to be a big shock coming over here. He's also recently faced a slightly better level of opposition, outpointing Patrick Nielsen, KOing Mehdi Bouadla. I'm sure I've pronounced that wrong. My point is, this guy, whilst he is beatable, is not an easy walk in the park fight. And I mean, let's be honest, the very, very few people who are Chris Eubank fans are ever going to have heard of Dmitry Chudinov, and very few people will have ever seen him fight before. I think it will only be us real hardcores who watch the Patrick Mendy fight or watch the Max Maxwell fight. These aren't sort of fan-friendly events. And the reason I find this so bizarre is there was no end to the amount of real credible contenders who are desperate to face Chris Eubank Jr. Imagine if Chris Eubank Jr. had fought Spike O'Sullivan. Now, that would have turned into a huge fight. The momentum, the press conferences, the hype that would surround a fight like that would sell a huge amount of tickets for the event, would drive subscriptions on Box Nation even further. And realistically, there were so many solid domestic opponents that you could have put Chris Eubank Jr. in with. I don't understand why they've gone down this route. A Spike O'Sullivan fight would have brought in so much more interest, so much more money. Again, raised a profile, kept Chris Eubank Jr. in the public eye. But what they've taken is a fight that is far less glamorous, that you'll get far less credit for winning with an opponent who is arguably bringing more to the table. Except, he's not going to be a big money opponent, he's not a big name opponent, a big fan profile opponent. But he's an unbeaten guy who's tricky. I mean, I'll do some more research on the guy because I haven't watched him extensively, but I've caught a few of his fights. And my impression of him is that whilst he may be limited in terms of high level skill set, I don't think he's a slickster like Billy Joe Saunders. I don't think he's got that sort of amateur pedigree and technical background. My impression, he's a tough, strong, rugged guy. I don't think he's the biggest puncher in the world necessarily, but he's KO'd 9 people. He stopped an opponent in the 3rd round last time out who had a decent enough record. He's shown capability of fighting for 12 rounds. He's a guy who brings something to the table, and for me the risk reward just isn't there. If Chris Eubank Jr. goes and loses to this guy, he's in serious problems with his career. And it's the guy, the rewards. Beating Dmitry Chudinov is not going to put Chris Eubank Jr. at the top of the middleweight division in most people's minds. I just don't understand why they possibly have decided to go down this route when there were so many attractive British middleweight matches. John Ryder is the opponent I'd most like to see, and I know he's with Eddie Hearn, so that fight most likely wouldn't have gone ahead. But certainly, Spike O'Sullivan, I've seen him on multiple clips on YouTube or interviews calling out Chris Eubank Jr. Nick Blackwell, I've seen him with similar comments. Why not get a fight with these guys? It would have become a massive event. It would have, really boosted both fighters' profiles. It would have driven huge money into Box Nation subscriptions and into ticket sales. Instead, we've got a guy here who brings very little to the table in terms of money and profile, who only us hardcores will be aware of. But, it's hard to say that Dmitry Chudinov is probably a harder fight than Spike O'Sullivan. He's an unbeaten guy. He's coming with a lot of desire. He's 28 years old. He's at his peak. Dmitry Chudinov would be a favourite if he was fighting Nick Blackwell at the minute. He really would be. He's operated at a higher level. So it's a fight which is a lot tougher and offers far less reward. Now, as I say, I need to do more research into the guy because I've watched a few of his fights. Not enough to make a full and frank prediction here. From what I have seen on him, that Mendy fight does give me cause for concern. He is beatable. And I think Chris Eubank Jr. I'd edge to at this point. I think he will just have enough to get the job done. But I want to go back and re-watch Chudinov's more recent fight or two. See whether he offers some improvements. My guess is that this is going to be a bit of a scrap. There's going to be lots of inside fighting, and that this could be a bit of a war. I don't think there's going to be the sort of slick outside jab move that we saw in the Billy Joe fight. I think this is going to be more of a dogfight, if you like. And I will do some more research on Chudinov, and I will post a more detailed and well-informed pre-fight prediction video. My initial thoughts, though, are confusing. It's a harder fight than Nick Blackwell. It's a harder fight than Spike O'Sullivan, possibly. And there's very, very little reward here. Very little reward indeed. Let me know your thoughts. Perhaps people out there will be more informed on Chudinov than I am. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the guy's absolutely useless and he's just lucky to be unbeaten. I'm interested to hear anyone who knows more about Chudinov, and I'm interested to hear how you think this fight will go. Thanks for watching.